fantasy short stories. Launch Today, Begin Again by R.L. Farr. On the day I made my decision, Sinya told me, "I've sent Ursa to the market so we can talk." Staring into my eyes, she warned, you don't realize the risk you're taking by mocking Trell's ambition. He's good for the shipyard. Good for you, if you would just stop demanding that he build vessels that you see as beautiful. It's time for you to live your life in comfort. Finish your little boat. Trells won't hold a grudge if you come back to work with him on one of his big ships." Colour had risen in her cheeks, but a shadow of fear in her grey eyes stopped my sharp reply before I began it. And besides, I knew it was too late. Yesterday the raven spirits warned me. My voice sounded only a little strained, speaking the truth. "Despite what Trolls thinks, I never meant our arguments to embarrass him." She frowned, knowing that I had avoided making the commitment she wanted to hear. 17, a year married, and already worry lines were cutting into my daughter's forehead. Just then we heard Ursa singing as she approached the kitchen door. "There is a place for you here, always," Sinya assured me hastily. I nodded my thanks. Though Sinya wishes that was true, she must suspect her husband wants me dead. Half my shipyard I gave to Trells and Signa as dowry, little imagining that all would not be enough for Trells. In the 5 years since I hired him as a woodwright, Trells has married my daughter and moved into my house. When he was first courting Sinya, I opened my heart to him, saying, "To build a beautiful ship pleases the spirits by making wood live." He smiled, feigning agreement. Barely a year and a half later, he tells me condescendingly, "Your ideas are out of date. You have no ambition. It's time to give merchants the big ships they want." As hard as Trells works as a woodwright, he has worked even harder at making himself agreeable to the merchants who are town councillors. So, when rumours about our arguments spilled out of the shipyard, Trells feared the wealthy would mock him, that our yard would lose contracts. Month by month, his vanity has swollen like a tumour. He believes any hint of my mistrust about how he manages the shipyard threatens his prosperous life. Too late I saw my danger and tried to craft a future in which I could retire as the quirky shipwright who builds beautiful boats in a corner of the yard. Although I knew Trells might see even that as criticism, I convinced myself it was something I deserved. Refusing to work any more on his bulging ships, I began building a 4-oared boat that would ride the waves as lightly as a dove-key. For the first time in a year, I felt clean. My blonde, broad-shouldered son-in-law was still in the shipyard when I arrived. Even at a distance, I could see a glow on his face. Probably he had just made a deal to build another ugly vessel. As Trells started toward me, 3 men followed him. The day before, when I witnessed them docking their old boat, I felt raven wings fan the air, lifting hairs on my neck. Trells introduced them. "Guthlof, Orlof, and Rethric just arrived from Lochland. I've hired them to guard us, guard the shipyard." I nodded, with my best pretense of goodwill. "Have you found a buyer for your little boat?" The skin beside Trell's eyes crinkled in false friendliness. "This week, I expect. Then you will return to important work." He strode toward the street. A young man now so sure of his power, he could say to his father-in-law, "Obey me or die." Trell's guards lounged after him. Guthlof missing half his left ear, Orlof with a scar from cheek to forehead, and Rethric, who never smiled. Tree-nailing my boat's last joint, oiling the strakes, fitting the mast and sail, and carving 2 pairs of oars, I finished work on the same day the yard's woodwrights were gripping capstan bars to launch the new ship. Heave away, haul away, cut tree, shape plank. Heave away, haul away, strain muscle, pull cable. I heard the fat ship grumble as it began to slide. Heave away, haul away, launch today, begin again. Waves sloshed. The ungainly hull rocked beside wharf pilings. Later that morning, Njol, the first man I'd hired 20 years ago, helped me slide my boat on rollers to the river. Afterward, Njol flexed his back and swiped at tangled grey hair. Gaze darting from my boat to the ship and back, he said stiffly, "I'd better return to the yard." I saw in his eyes that because of our past friendship, he wanted to say more, but feared Truel's. Rough fingers brushing my arm, he pleaded earnestly, "Now that you've finished your boat, you should come back to work with us." I nodded, as if that was something I could consider, but I didn't fool him. Njol's face closed in farewell. As I was checking to be sure my boat was tied securely to a piling, time seemed to blow away like mist. 20 years ago, I had landed at this spot in my skiff built from the planks of a wrecked ship, still in a daze of good fortune because a seal woman had rescued me from the wreck. Still tangled in what already felt like a month-long dream of loving her in her cave, and still stung by her goodbye. "You cannot stay with me, nor can I come with you," Nyrul insisted. "To be revenged on Rarlif for his brutality to my sister and his attempt to murder me, I have to remain here, where I am just beyond the edge of his attention. He doesn't suspect I escaped, but if he hears there is an unknown man living within his lands, he might sense a threat. He may begin to wonder about the woman in the healer's cave." As always, before leaving the wharf, I asked the spirits and any seals who might be listening to speak to my seal woman. In answer, I heard only small waves warning, "Shh, shh." That night, I took a few last things from the house, topping off my sack of clothes and provision that I had hidden in the shipyard's log pile. Stars ducked in and out of clouds. A west wind chilled me. Feeling alternately sad and joyous, I rode away from Pennelport, seabag and toolbox at my feet. After more than 20 years as a shipwright and 10 years since the death of my wife, I was starting over again. Clouds thickened, covering the stars. Behind me, almost at the harbor mouth, I heard the unmistakable thud of a hull glancing off a log. Someone cursed. An oar squeaked against a thole pin. My pursuers were close, no doubt rowing faster than I in their old 6-oared boat. Guthloff, Orloff, and Rethric. Truel's would be steering, would want to witness my death, ending the threat he believed I posed to his prosperous life. Since I hadn't fooled Truel's by fleeing at the dark of the moon, I gambled on another plan. They would expect me to stay close to land. Quickly hoisting sail, I steered away from the coast. My boat swooped over waves. By grey dawn, land had faded to a blur on the horizon, though not quite far enough. I spotted their sail, and at the same time their boat turned toward mine. A southwest wind behind them ruffled the sea and drove smoky clouds across the sky. Their larger boat gained quickly. All too soon I could hear water rushing around its prow. As tall and firm as any raider chief, Truel's gripped the steering oar. Guthloff held an axe. Orloff a sword, and Rethric raised a spear to his shoulder. For the first time, Rethric smiled, a flash of teeth that said more clearly than words, "Dodge or veer away, whatever you try, my spear will taste your blood." I nerved myself for a desperate lunge against the steering oar, which would send my boat stem smashing into their hull. Before I could act, seals leaped onto the rail of the pursuing boat, their heavy bodies bearing it underwater. Guthloff, Orloff, and Rethric toppled against the mast. Joels lunged forward, his knife slashing at the halyard to prevent a capsize. Close behind my boat, gleaming in waves, a seal lengthened to a woman. I reached out, grasping her hand, and pulled aboard a lithe body I had known almost as well as my own, more mature now, dripping on the thwart. From the top of my sea bag, I snatched Signa's warmest winter dress and her fleece-padded cloak. With graceful movements, as much seal as human, Nyrule slipped into the dress. As soon as she had settled the cloak around her shoulders, she arched her eyebrows. "You expected me?" I never stopped hoping. Lips, cool and salty, brushed mine. I saw a woman like the one I had remembered at night for more than 20 years, but whose hair was cut shorter and streaked with grey. Ambushing my joy, bitterness surged over me. "Are you free now of your revenge?" I demanded. Head tilted up, voice thick, she said, "Vorlif is dead. His heart gave out fighting to control his daughter. I stayed long enough to rescue her from suspicion of Orloff's death, and from the surety of her brothers sending her to a wretched marriage. In return for my hiding her, Aero has replaced me as healer to the farm folk. It's time for me to start again. And you? Have you no regrets at leaving your respectable life in Pennelport?" "Only that I will miss my daughter who, despite her desire for comfort, is smart and stubborn and kind, but exchanged life in town for a future with you in an instant." "It won't be easy. We must sail so far that no merchant is likely to carry back rumors to Troel's, and it must be a place where I can leave my past behind." She answered my question before I spoke it. "I've heard of islands, lightly settled, off the tip of Nordland. Those homesteaders will need your skill in building boats, and a seal's help in finding fish." Heart full, hand on the tiller, I pointed our boat north. R.L. Farr, the author of Launched Today, Begin Again, lives in a fishing community on a small island that often appears closer to the realms of drakons and seal women than to the mainland of the present-day world. Recently, one of Farr's short stories has appeared in The Writer's Journal and an ecological essay in From the Ground Up. Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed that story. I do want to apologize for being gone for a week. Some stuff happened in my personal life, and in addition to that, I built a brand new booth for recording. The booth was only supposed to take a couple days. It was the other stuff that kind of pushed it out for a full week. But I am back, and I'm hoping to get ahead of stuff before my upcoming eye surgeries. We'll see if I can do that or not. For those interested, I am hoping to put a video showcasing my new recording booth on YouTube. So if you wanted to see that, head over there. Should be on my main channel, Tall Tale TV. As for this story, the reason I chose it is, first of all, the writing was awesome. R.L. Farr did a great job with that. But also, I have a soft spot for Selkies. When I was a little kid, I saw a movie with a Selkie in it, and I thought it was just the coolest thing ever, and I've always been stuck on them ever since.
And this story also reminded me of one of my favorite authors, Robin Hobb, who, from what I understand, she actually lived in a place with a lot of boats and grew up on boats and stuff like that. I can't remember the exact story, but she always wrote all these really fine details about manning the boats and changing the whatever you call it and moving the thing over there. I get a kick out of it. I have never been on a boat bigger than a kayak. So it's something that I can try to imagine, and it's like, cool, but I have no frame of reference, so reading about it is as close as I've ever gotten. Anyway, if you guys enjoyed the story, be sure to leave a thumbs up and a comment if you're on YouTube. Or if you're listening to the podcast, just be sure to subscribe for more brand new short stories. I'm Chris Herron, and that's it for today's Tall Tale TV.